Patients with metastatic squamous cell carcinoma have a poor prognosis, and currently there are no approved agents for this disease. Currently available treatments, including chemotherapy, have limited efficacy. Cutaneous squamous cell carcinoma has a couple of features that made us hypothesize that this disease may be particularly responsive to immune therapy. In particular, it has a very high tumour mutation burden and is also associated with immunosuppression. Cemiplimab is an IgG4 monoclonal antibody directed against the PD-1 receptor, and in the dose escalation phase 1 trial, some promising activity was seen with cemiplimab in cutaneous squamous cell carcinoma, which led to the design of the current phase 2 study. The phase 2 study enrolled patients with metastatic cutaneous squamous cell carcinoma that was either distant metastases or patients that had spread to nodal sites that were no longer amenable to curative surgery or radiotherapy. And the trial enrolled patients that were immune competent, so patients that were on immunosuppressive therapy or had chronic lymphocytic leukemia were not eligible for the trial. We enrolled 59 patients. There was an elderly population, which is typical for this disease, median age of 71, and the oldest patient on trial was 93. Patients were heavily pre-treated. 85% had prior radiotherapy and 56% had prior chemotherapy. And the primary endpoint was the objective response rate, complete and partial response rate, as per RECIST 1.1 criteria and as adjudicated by independent central review. The key finding was that nearly half, 47.5% of patients had an objective response. And what was striking was that these responses were rapid and they were sustained. We found that of the 28 patients that responded, only 3 had progressed at the time of the data cutoff, and 59% of patients remained on treatment at that time. Pleasingly, the drug was very well tolerated in this elderly population. The toxicity profile was as expected and similar to what has been seen in previous trials of anti-PD-1 agents, and very few patients needed to cease treatment due to adverse events. So in summary, cemiplimab demonstrated very striking activity in patients with metastatic cutaneous squamous cell carcinoma and was well tolerated, and we expect that this will become a new standard of care for patients with metastatic cutaneous squamous cell carcinoma.